Okay, folks, this is kind of a potentially important story here. Feds probe stunning twist in D.C. National Guard murder. The former Afghan fighter who killed one National Guard member and left a second critically injured just 2 blocks from the White House may have been blackmailed into carrying out the shooting, the swamp has learned. U.S. intelligence is investigating information that a Taliban hit squad threatened to murder Ramanullah Lakhanwal's family in Afghanistan unless he opened fire on American troops in the nation's capital. Investigators are asking themselves why a man who was vetted by 2 administrations and with no criminal record and no history of extremism should drive across the country on an apparent suicide mission to shoot at heavily armed U.S. military personnel with a revolver. Yeah, this guy was from Washington State, so he drove 3,000 miles to do this. One line of inquiry they are seriously pursuing, according to sources with knowledge of the investigation, is that Lakhanwal was made an offer he could not refuse. Either he accepted the mission or his family in Afghanistan would be beaten, murdered, and possibly beheaded. Lakhanwal was a member of the Afghan Scorpion forces working closely with the CIA as a GPS tracking specialist. He helped the U.S. military escape from Kabul in a shambolic retreat from Afghanistan in August 2021. Between August 14th and 30th, more than 123,000 people were airlifted from Kabul airport. The Afghan fighter joined one of the last flights because he served the United States and due to the danger he would be in if he were left behind. About 700 Scorpion Forces members are understood to be detained in Afghanistan because they worked with America and its allies. In the 5 years since the U.S. evacuation, a Taliban military unit called Yarmouk 60 has devoted itself to tracking down and in some cases killing Afghans who worked with the West. Earlier this year, a member of the Afghan Triples, an elite special forces unit that was set up, trained, and funded by the UK to combat the Taliban, managed to leave the country and get to Germany, hoping his family could follow on later. In retaliation, Yarmouk 60 killed his wife and father and 4 of his children, including 2 little girls who were, yes, I won't even read that, the source told The Swamp. Pretty awful stuff. It is by no means our only line of inquiry, said an intelligence source who has worked closely with the authorities trying to help Afghans with a target on their backs because of their work with the West. People in this country have no idea about the level of stress these people are under. Most of them have families back home, and if the Taliban cannot get to them, they are making it very clear that they will go after their families. So there's a couple different takes on this. I'm going to give you kind of the blue pill take and then the non-blue pill take. All right. So Adam Cochran says, wow, this is wild. U.S. intelligence is investigating that the D.C. shooter might have been blackmailed into the attack with claims the Taliban had threatened his family back in Afghanistan. So this attack wasn't about too much immigration. It was about too little. This is why when Dems push for these programs to bring Afghan allies to the U.S., it was argued that we needed to bring their families too, both because it was the right thing to do, but also a security threat to not. In other words, by leaving the families behind, you make them vulnerable to these kinds of threats, which then can then be leveraged over people here, who then can be compelled or extorted or blackmailed, if you will, into committing heinous acts like this. So that's one take. Now I'm going to give you another take here by Sean Patrick McCarthy. This was interesting too. One story I can't forget is the potential Colorado mass shooter, this was back in 2023, who wrote, "I am not a killer" on a bathroom wall before taking his own life. It's entirely believable that the National Guard shooter was blackmailed into the act, but it wasn't the Taliban that blackmailed him. Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't think it's far-fetched to believe that he was put up to this somehow. Because why else would he drive 3,000 miles across the country to do it? If he's a terrorist and he wants to commit an act of terrorism, he can't do it anywhere near his hometown. He's got to drive across the country to do that. That does suggest he was compelled. But yeah, he was blackmailed by the CIA to go kill those people to cause division, says War Master Nassim. Catherine says, I thought this exact thing. Why would he drive across the country to do this? He was being urged by someone else to do this. Yeah, exactly. So whether you believe that story, that it was the Taliban who blackmailed him or whether that is the cover story for forces within the deep state who may have put him up to this. It seems very plausible to me that he was put up to this, as evidenced by the fact that he drove across country in order to do this. And so, what you can glean from this is that this is more evidence that this was not a problem of Islam or immigration, but that this was a deep state experiment gone wrong. Whether you believe he was directly put up to it or not, he was clearly psychologically broken by his experience in this CIA-trained death squad, according to multiple human rights groups, and was, he is clearly a product of United States imperialism and the extent to which our intel agencies are used to turn people in these countries against their own people. They make enemies back home. And then, whether you believe the Taliban story or not is up to you. I am more inclined to believe that that is a cover for a cover than that's the actual truth of things. Obviously, it's unknowable, it's unprovable, but that went viral for pretty good reason. The fact that you have, sources saying that, we believe this guy was blackmailed, just goes to show you that, this was, if not a false flag, this was a result of a deep state experiment gone awry. What it was not is a problem of too many immigrants from undesirable countries coming in. What'd they say? 90,000 Afghans were admitted under this Operation Allies program or whatever it was. Well, what they're telling you is that 89,000 plus caused no problem at all. Isn't it a coincidence that the one guy who was CIA trained and CIA groomed is the guy who committed this heinous act? Now we find out he drove across country to do it, and that sources are saying he was blackmailed and put up to it because of threats against him and his family. Where those threats came from, that's a question that I think is worthy of debate itself. But given everything else we know about this case, it seems very, very plausible and worth investigating more. I can't wait for Kash Patel and Pam Bondi to look into this.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
but
yeah,
no, they're not doing that. What they're promising to do is send the National Guard to every city as a result of this.
Yeah, this perfectly, a lot of times we just get lucky. It's going to look like we planned this show because the next segment comes perfectly out of this segment. But key bono, who benefits? Well, what did they do? They immediately used this as a pretext to cut off immigration from 19 countries,
right?
To send the National Guard into more American cities. This is what their entire agenda is. They're going to create false flag emergencies in order to get public support or at least acquiescence to a police state. And if and when the Democrats take over, they're not going to dismantle it. They're just going to turn it to, I'm not even going to say their own ends. Like in the end, it's one end. This deep state, new world order, economic forum world that you thought Trump was fighting against, he's consummating their vision. And in the end, most of those people, they're kind of libby in their cultural sensibility. They'll be very, very happy with an America that has been turned into a police state that puts tampons in the boys' bathroom. That is Klaus Schwab's ideal society.
Yes, indeed. Indeed, there's no question about it, and you could tell, just like we covered the latest in the Charlie Kirk, I won't say investigation, but in the whole mystery surrounding that, you could see how immediately after that happened, they came out and announced these speech crackdowns and this, drastic
just like the Patriot Act after 9/11. They had that shit ready to go like the next day.
And just like this, they have it ready to go the next day. This administration is just so incompetent and so thick-headed, and Donald Trump is such a bull in the china shop that they're really not able to sell this, because what does he go straight to? The Somalians, they're garbage. They're garbage. Like you're just expressing such raw unmistakable racism, that it's hard to then mask this as some kind of security threat or an issue of infiltration and sleeper cells or all that stuff, because you could just see how just like emotionally you are invested in ginning up hatred towards this group. People say, okay, well, if that's the face of this, then they can't even get the psyop right because the guy is too clumsy at the top to sell it. And that's why, like, I'm telling you guys, I hate to be a broken record on this, but that Laura Ingraham H-1B visa, that was a tipping point. It's not the most significant point in this first year of Trump's second term, but it was the point where the scales tipped, right? And once the scales tipped, now the incline is going the wrong way, where none of this shit works anymore. None of this shit works anymore because people understand that their lives are not getting
Holy
better.
crap!
Right, exactly. Like, you're not going to be, oh, wow, 1 million job cuts this year. The most job cuts in any year since 2003. Fox News just covered it. We would have done a segment on that, but that broke like right before we went on. Fox News is having to report this. So, like, who are you fooling at this point? Like, who is this working on? Who's going to stop and say, oh, wait a minute. I guess we better trust that they know what they're doing. No, like, that ship has just sailed. You burnt too many people too quickly at a rate I have not seen. Like I said, I've said this, and I hate to be a broken record on this too. I've never seen anything like this. How an administration could just spoil all the goodwill they came in with so quickly.
Because these guys are taking this opportunity to build the new world order, and they're not worried about the next election.
Right.
You got Pigman Lutnick there sitting next to Trump. You think that Lutnick thinks it's a great cabinet? You think Lutnick thinks that Trump is a great president? He's a fucking tool for him and criminals like him to turn America into a feudal state that serves people like him.
Right. Exactly.
Please clap.